Just a lot of things to talk about before we let some questions from the audience. First of all, what put you onto the story in the first place? We always ask that.
Well, I blame it on my parents. When I was 9 years old, they took me to see 2001, and I think it just thoroughly rewired my brain. And so these ideas have been floating around in my head, kind of at the forefront of my mind my whole life. I also came out of seeing 2001 wanting to be a filmmaker. So it had a very profound effect on me. And then when I met Gentry, here's a guy who collaborated with the guy who wrote 2001, and I don't know, it was love at first sight.
And how did you come to meet him?
My producer on this film had some contacts at JPL, and he brought up this idea, maybe you'd want to make a movie about what's gone on at JPL. I was a little skeptical. I've seen a lot of documentaries about that stuff, and most of them have not been very interesting to me. But I went out and I did a tour. I talked to a lot of people, and at the end of the day, they said, "This guy, the reason we brought you out here, this is a guy you really got to meet. His name's Gentry Lee." I'd never heard of him. And we sat down and we started talking, and within 5-10 minutes, I knew I'd found somebody I wanted to make a movie about. Not only that, I knew that I could not put this guy in a movie with anybody else.
Well, the thing is that he's such the perfect person for the story you wanted to tell. I mean, he wants to tell that story. You wanted to tell that story, and he's just an amazing. He's a singularity of his own in terms of his scientific brain and his sense of wonder and his sense of connection to.
It's highly unusual. I've never met anybody like him. I don't think there is anybody like him in this field. And you got to understand, movies are about people. And here's a subject matter that really challenges one as a filmmaker. Like, how do you make a film about robots, going off and exploring the cosmos, and what does it all mean? And are there, like, how do you do that and make it a human story? So it's got to be about people. And as Gentry points out in the movie, most of the people who are involved in this extraordinary enterprise are engineers and scientists, and they're not very good at operating outside of their engineering scientific jargon and sort of way of thinking. And they're not very good at communicating what it is they're doing and why they're doing it and what it all means. I've never met anybody like Gentry. I mean, I guess Carl Sagan was able to do this, but he was talking about it, but he wasn't actually doing this stuff, right? So Gentry has this. Not only was he building the robots, designing robots, planning the missions, overseeing the missions, he also had this whole sort of grand philosophical vision about why we're doing it. We're searching for life. We're answering like basic cosmic questions about why we're here. Are we alone in the universe? And then he's also interested in flying saucers and science fiction and philosophy and he's also in baseball.
Yeah, well, the thing about both Arthur C. Clarke, who's British and reserved in his own way and comes from a scientific background, but has also the science fiction imagination, but still is kind of reserved and held back. And Carl Sagan, who's I think of him more as a brain and his intellect, and he's probing these questions. But the sense from Gentry Lee is sense of wonder throughout everything. Every single thing is a sense of wonder about baseball and batting averages. And then it goes on to a sense of wonder about everything else. So it is, you make a movie about people, he is the most human face you could possibly have on this kind of exploration, this kind of interrogation of the meaning of life and the universe, what's going on. It's just an amazing character. On the filmmaking, the first question is, of course, how did you come by all those amazing images? I mean, the cosmic ones, some of us, we've seen some of those before, other things. The one that struck me right in the beginning is the surface, meant to be, maybe it is the surface of Mars, and it's red, and then you have him walking onto it. And but where did you come by all your images? How do you sort through to find all the different ones, including all the different ones from Voyager, from other things, and the cosmos in general? That's a lot of different images, amazing ones, but a lot of different ones.
Well, we took Gentry to Mars, and that was difficult. That's a green screen, it's a CGI shot. We tried to avoid doing CGI. You've got to remember when I think I started this film like 3 years ago, and AI was like, everybody was talking about AI, and I thought, oh, this would be a really interesting movie to start experimenting with AI. And realized very early on, you know what's so amazing about these photographs, these images of these planets that we took with Voyager and these other missions, is they're real. And the shots of Mars, I don't know if you've ever been to one of the space museums where they have these gigantic blow-up pictures of Mars. I could just sit there and look at these things for hours. It's just astonishing, right? So the real images, the fact that they're real is what gives them the power. And so, yeah, a lot of it's from, I mean, there's so much, I mean, you saw the list of archives we used. It's like, it's enormous. The footage came from all over the place.
No, they're amazing. And I think that, again, back to what he's like, he makes it very clear that a lot of people miss the point. By looking for life on other planets, people are missing the point of the wonder of the exploration. The ability to see what's going on these planets is its own goal, its own wonder. And to say, oh, well, and to make light of it, and are there green men and so forth, the press not understanding, as he points out. But he says again and again, yes, we want to know about life on other planets, and we want to know more about everything. But the fact that we can see these things is the sense of wonder. And the amazing thing to me from the way you made the film is he talks about that light bulb thing, where the reason why it's impossible to know if there's other planets and life on other planets is because the civilizations extinguish.
It's time and space.
Yeah, time and space. And so there might be another civilization, but it's gone too soon for it to connect with another civilization. And that's just starts you thinking. But it comes back at the end, because the point you're making is we need to survive long enough to figure out about whether there's life on other planets. So is that thesis what he makes so strongly at the end about climate change, about what we're doing to the planet, you don't start there, but we wind up there in a very powerful way. So is that part of the arc of the story that how you wanted to tell it?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think that's the part of the story of his life, too. You know, the guy who imagined, as all of his colleagues did in the early 60s, that there was life on Mars. Maybe even, I mean, Carl Sagan in 1974, he goes on the Johnny Carson show and says, you know, we believe there's good evidence that there could be animals running around on Mars. We want to go look. You forget people actually thought that, you know? Even in the early 60s, there was the consensus among people in that field was that there was definitely life on Mars, possibly intelligent life. They didn't know. So then the part of the journey of the film is the crushing blow of, well, actually, it's not going to be that. Well, you know, but then what else? Maybe it could be microbes. Or then you get the realization, if there's anything, if we do discover a fossilized microbe on Mars, that's pretty amazing, right? Yeah. It means that some life took root somewhere beyond the Earth, and there are trillions of planets, so there must be something. But, so the answer to the question, are we alone, is both yes and no. That both things are true, and that it's highly unlikely we are alone, but it's almost 100% true that we are alone, because we'll never know.
We'll never know,
right? And that's
exactly.
What makes it. Then it becomes almost the theological or spiritual question, you know. That is very similar to the questions that have been asked by, you know, theologians back through the ages.
Of course, but you also have, I love the identification of someone as a futurist, right? But, and AI can probably compute some of these things as to the probability of life on these 300 trillion other planets, and then the probability that we'll ever know about it, and how long will it take before we can get, as he poses the question, how long will it take before we get the technology to be able to find out if there's something close enough from another
we
star?
do have the technology. The problem is time and space.
Exactly.
So, you know, we've only been making our existence, making ourselves, our awareness known to the universe since the advent of radio and television. So that's about 100 years, right? So as far as the universe is concerned, we only started existing 100 years ago, right? If there's anybody out there might be picking up some signals, right? That's not a very long time.
No, but we also don't have the technology to travel in that way yet.
Never
in
will.
terms of that
No,
speed.
never will. Never
Probably
will. Never will. No, that's the thing. So, I mean, there's so many directions we could have gone. But one little factoid that I find interesting is that in order to achieve the travel at the speed of light, that requires an infinite amount of energy.
Yeah.
Okay? So now you scale that back like you're 99% of the speed of light. That's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so,
And then you got to think, there's another thing people don't think about. So, like, even in order to get even anywhere close to the speed of light, you have to have a chunk of matter about the size of the moon in order for your fuel. And then you're going so fast, you need like another moon-size chunk of matter in order to slow you down.
well, and that's the difference between,
It's not
again,
just a little
between
UFO like flying along. It doesn't work
making
that way.
something that's not implausible. You mean because there's not warp factor 5?
Right.
You know,
Well,
we
that was
can't
the
do
other
that.
thing we bonded over. Is like we both, maybe because I, saw 2001 when I was a little kid and it just implanted itself in my brain. But we really bonded over plausible science fiction. I love science fiction that doesn't totally violate the laws of physics. I really
Exactly.
get excited about that. I was never really a big Star Wars fan for that reason. So
Well, fantasy and science fiction.
it's a very
really
different
nice,
thing.
really nice distinction.
Although I love Star Trek. So
But going back to the idea of how long we've been, the universe has been able to be aware of us because of our radio technology, I was reminded so clearly, and you did the same thing, on Saturday Night Live when Voyager was going out, or when the first radio telescope messages were going out, and Dan Aykroyd said, "We've got a message back." And the message
More
back
Chuck
is
Berry.
more Chuck Berry. I thought that was great. So I couldn't stop thinking about that when that was coming up. Also, the timing today is amazing because there's a front page story in the New York Times today about the abduction. Barney and his wife.
Is there? I didn't see that.
Front page story in the New York
I've
Times
been driving.
about the abduction. So
Interesting.
I just read
What
it
did
this
it
morning,
say?
and I came here and I said, "There's Barney."
What
on the
did it
screen.
say?
It was talking about the place. I think it's in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
where it's this like every roadside stop has all kinds of alien stuff and there's all kinds of different things, and
Capitalism.
talking about what was in the film about other people that have this consortium of people that have all been abducted and all their details and everything else. But then it goes to the thing that Gentry talks about, which is the likelihood that other life is going to look like us is zero. It's less.
Well,
it's
this is
impossible
another
to do.
thing that scientists, he doesn't say it's impossible. He said it's so close to zero, because that's the other thing. Scientists will never say something's impossible.
Right.
That's always, I remember I did another film years ago and I got to know this Nobel Prize winning physicist, and we were having this. I was asking him this question. He says, what do you think, Robert, what do you think the odds are of all the oxygen in this room, and suddenly moving over into the corner and is dying because all the oxygen is over there? What do you think the odds of that are? It's like, no, zero. He says, no, it's not zero.
Not zero.
Like
It's
everything
hard to
has a
compute.
probability.
Hard
and
to
the
compute.
general public just doesn't understand that.
Yeah, well, that's why I think that, putting the questions to AI about different kinds of probability would be interesting in that sense. But we have a little bit of time for some questions from the audience. Oh, yeah, I just think that, just for me to finish up, it's so strong, the message so strong because of him and his wonder about nature. I mean, there's a lot of people who are on that vibration of that. It's just incredible to us that we live in a planet that is what it is without any influence from us. And to have that sense and to have the rarity of it, the singularity of what we are, the paradise we live in, and what we're doing to it, I think it's very, very strong, and I just can't say that strongly enough. Please, right there.
I'm interested in your negotiations or dealings with NASA. You have some wonderful footage that captures the spirit of people working with technology, obviously, years ago. I'm interested whether this is a royalty process or a permission process or what the challenges are.
That's a very interesting question. Are you a filmmaker? No, you're not. Okay, well, I'll try to answer this quickly and not get too wonky about it. But this film was made without the cooperation of NASA because they wouldn't cooperate with us. You think that's kind of crazy, right? Because people will go see this film, it's like, oh yeah, we got to put more money into robotic exploration. No, so they have a rule that they will only fund documentaries that are fully funded and have distribution before they even start, right? Which means the only documentaries that they will cooperate with are made by National Geographic or Discovery, initiated by them. And somebody like me, even with a 40-year track record of making documentaries, their policy is to not cooperate. Now, I had to beg for about a year just to get a few hours inside JPL to film Gentry. And they did that around the back of NASA Public Relations.
And Gentry couldn't help you get access in any
He
way?
did, but I mean, I had to meet with the head of JPL, and she said, "Oh, come on, I'll let you do it." But NASA said no. Isn't that crazy?
That's nuts. Yeah. Back there?
I have a question because Gentry seemed to posit that, for example, with the dinosaurs, that civilization on Earth has to be gone for a new civilization to rise up and then posit new things. So does that mean that we need to be ended so that a new civilization will come on Earth and go further than we
I don't think
have?
that's exactly what I think what he
Did I
was trying to
misunderstand?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think what he was pointing out is that there's been so many things, crazy unique things that happened that led us to being here. One of which was the extinction of the dinosaurs because of an asteroid.
I was extrapolating it
Right?
further.
So it's just, as he said, most of life has been wiped out 5 times. If any of those things hadn't happened, we wouldn't be here, or something else would have arisen. But it might not have been an intelligent life that is as unique as we are, that's figured out that there even is a cosmos and that we are here, right? I mean, one thing he pointed out to me, is not in the film, but I found it very interesting, I'd never thought of this, is that Jupiter is so vast, it acts like a gravity hole that prevents comets and meteors, striking the Earth. They get sucked into Jupiter. Right. And so Jupiter acts as this protective mechanism for the Earth. Like, how many other solar systems have that? Yeah. So that's what he's trying to say. There's so many crazy things that led to us being here. We are such an incredible miracle, and we are so lucky to be here.
But he also said, and I think this was a point that I took, was that we are intelligent enough to be able to recognize threats and be able to figure out how to survive, because the key is to survive.
Right.
That's the key.
And that's the meaning of life.
To have evolution far enough to say, okay, we have the intelligence to understand these are the threats we face, and this is how we survive them. Right. And right now we have a threat, a global threat, and do we have the intelligence and the wherewithal to figure out how to survive it and have the planet survive?
Yep.
Right there in the middle.
Firstly, thank you for such a fabulous film. It's wonderful. And I wanted to ask, Gentry is just a perfect presenter, I think. And I wanted to ask how you got him to say what he was saying. How did you, if you asked him questions, or how it was that you got him to, how he gave his story. And the second one was just, there's a very brief glimpse of Elon Musk at the end of it. And I wondered how you decided to just absolutely minimize sort of the idea of the future of space travel.
Well, first of all, Gentry, he is just a natural storyteller. He's so good that there's actually a book about storytelling by the famous Hollywood producer Peter Guber. There's an entire chapter about Gentry. But that was also one of the challenges, actually one of the biggest challenges in making the film, is that Gentry is actually too good. And it's why he's not been included in other documentaries. He's simply too good. I had 11 hours of interviews with him. And it took me a year to edit the dialogue into some sort of coherent narrative, because he's never not interesting. Most times you do an interview with somebody, it's like you can easily get like 90% of it okay, and then you got to work the 10%, you whittle it down. Every moment of those 11 hours is absolutely fascinating. So that was a real challenge. Also because he talks in story. So any given thing he's talking about is related to some story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and a punchline, right? And you can't do that in a movie because we got a lot of subjects to cover. So I had to completely rework how he communicates. fortunately, he's so thrilled with the film. He tells everybody all the time that I've captured his essence and distilled it down to its nub, which is, to me, the greatest compliment I can have, because that's what I tried to do. But what you see is a distillation. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of your?
You minimized the reference, I think, to the future of space travel, and there was a glimpse of Elon Musk.
Right. Yeah, I didn't really I wanted to elevate the film and talk about sort of bigger things. And a lot has happened since they finished the film. Obviously, the Trump administration has come in, budgets have been cut, JPL has been decimated, all the robotic exploration has been canceled, all the money's going into going back to the moon and potentially going to Mars. You talk to Gentry, will tell you we're never going to Mars. And he will convince you in 10 minutes it can never happen.
Well, it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. But he says it will only happen if the entire planet got together and decided that that's the number one thing we need to do.
Well,
it's that complicated.
Well, I wish we had a little more time, but I thank you so much for a beautiful film, a wonderful guy, and a really important film. Really, really important film. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And everybody be sure to mark your ballots.
Yeah. I'll be out in the hallway if you want to.